Stepan Kubiv and Johannes will sign agreement between the governments of Ukraine and the European Commission on the financing of the action EU Anti-Corruption Initiative in Ukraine Phase 2. Stepan Kubiv and Johannes Hahn will sign the agreement between the government of Ukraine and the European Commission on the financing of the action Support to Civil Society and Culture. Stepan Kubiv and Johannes Hahn will sign the addendum number 1 between the government of Ukraine and the European Commission acting on behalf of the European Union to the financing agreement EU support to the east of Ukraine. Now we invite Gennady Zubko, Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine, Minister for Regional Development, Building, Housing and Communal Services of Ukraine, and Johannes Hahn, Commissioner for European Neighbourhood Policy and Enlargement Negotiations, who will sign the agreement between the government of Ukraine and the European Commission on the financing of the action You Lead with Europe, Ukraine Local Empowerment, Accountability and Development Programme, Phase 2. Our signing ceremony is concluded.
The last time.
Now we invite the President of Ukraine to make a statement.
Can I begin? Okay.
Dear Mr. President, dear President Tusk, dear President Juncker, dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to welcome the President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, and President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and Vice President of the European Commission, Federica Mogherini, and European Commissioner Johannes Hahn on the 21st Summit, Ukraine-EU. We can give a hand of applause to our dear guests. Today's meeting is really the meeting of partners and friends who share common democratic values. Starting from 1997, this is the 21st summit altogether, but the first one for me personally. People say that the newbies are lucky, and my team and I are ready to act fast and very effectively. So possibly the 21st summit, well, could be the last one because Ukraine could become the inseparable part of Europe. Today, we have made a summary of our relations, but most of the time we were discussing plans and priorities for the future. This future is not possible without peace in Ukraine. Yesterday, together with President Tusk, we visited Donbass, particularly Stanitsa Luhanska, and it's a shame that the delegations of some of the countries from the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe were not there with us. I am sure that it could be very, very useful for them. So if anyone has any doubts, any questions, or any kind of doubts as to continuation of sanctions, I can invite all of them to Donbass to show how much trouble this war has created for us. And we really want to stop this war, and we really want to bring back peace to Ukraine. But this can only be done with consolidated weapon, and that is diplomacy. I was happy to hear from our European friends today that their position on the behavior of and the conduct of the Russian Federation is clear and unchanged. Sectoral and Crimean sanctions will continue for the next 12 and 6 months, respectively. Please, do not think that sanctions is my favorite word. My favorite word is peace. And sanction policy is the last civilized tool to achieve peace. It has to continue until the full completion of the Minsk agreements, the reinstatement of sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. I spoke about this before, but I will not get tired to repeat that. When our partners are saying that do not forget that we're losing money, our response is very simple. Do not forget that we're losing territories and we're losing people every day. Going back to our trip to Stanitsa Luhanska, I would like to note that the removal of forces happened there on both sides, and now we're waiting to see the removal of concrete structures to renew the bridge. We are moving towards the ceasefire, sustainable ceasefire. It's not happening as fast as we'd like because we're basically working the minefield in every sense of the word. And ahead, we're facing a lot of work ahead to build Donbass, and I'm grateful to the European Union for a number of infrastructural projects that improved the life of people in Donbass, including the efforts in the liberated territories, specifically in the Azov Sea region, which continues to suffer from the economic blockade of the Azov Sea. We are discussing all these matters on the investment forum on the rebuilding of infrastructure of Donbass, which we plan to host in Mariupol in September. And at all foreign meetings, international meetings, I'm inviting all investors to attend the forum, both Ukrainian and international investors. We were talking about the achievements of the recent years, including the visa-free regime, decentralization, transparent procurement, but I believe that this was just a starter for Ukraine. The most complex changes, the most complicated changes are still ahead, and Ukrainians are tired of waiting to see them happen. The most important part is overcoming corruption. In the short time that I'm in office, we already have some achievements. We have deblocked international cooperation between national anti-corruption bureau with the international anti-corruption bodies. Another positive point is abolition of electronic declarations for anti-corruption activists. We're also preparing for full-fledged launch of the High Anti-Corruption Court. The last obstacle on this path was the absence of necessary premises for this authority, and this problem has been resolved. On the 5th of September this year, this court will start looking into corruption cases, and I welcome you all. And it's located on the Victory Avenue, and this is very symbolic because we're interested not in fighting against corruption, but in winning a decisive victory over corruption. All of these are little victories with our arms tied. We need to reboot the whole anti-corruption system, the work specifically of the National Anti-Corruption Commission. And we believe that the new law will help us work on the overcoming corruption in Ukraine. I'm grateful to the European Union that is prepared to support us, including providing financial support in this matter. In the recent years, we have continuously heard that we only need the political will to make it happen, and I have this will. And some people may not have the will to do as they please for some time. I'm not trying to intimidate anyone, but I know how much the European partners are tired to allocate funds on the mythical fight against corruption. Very soon we will be asking not for the money, but for the extradition of escaped top corruptioners. I assured our European partners that our position on all other reforms of Ukraine is identical. Deshadowing of economy, establishment of independent court, overcoming monopolies, fighting against traitorship and smuggling. And tomorrow I am signing respective decrees about that. The incomplete decentralization and strengthening of civil society are also important parts of it. We have signed 5 agreements that will facilitate these reforms in Ukraine. Benjamin Franklin said that time is money, and our current problems include both the first and the second components. We have problems with both time and money. And in order to establish positive changes, we want to move very fast. Today, we have also discussed trade relations. And we pointed out that the trade between Ukraine and the EU continues growing. This process is facilitated by a deep and comprehensive free trade area agreement, which is part of the association agreement. And we should not stop. The more growth, the better. And I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about our economic indicators.
From my perspective, the agreement should be a flexible tool that would be in compliance with modern reality of our relations and mainly the potential of Ukraine. That's why I offered to our partners to start a joint assessment of the agreement implementation to achieve a new level, the level that would be in the interest of Ukrainian and European business as well as in the interest of our consumers. Meanwhile, we'll be efficiently using all available possibilities. We are keen on having further sectorial integration of Ukrainian market and the EU markets. That's energy, digital market, justice, customs, and trade facilitation. I appreciate the readiness of the European partners to allocate the second tranche of the 4th program of microfinancial assistance to Ukraine worth €500 million. To conclude, let me say that the relations between Ukraine and the EU is not just a partnership, political association or economic integration. That's, we are friends and we enjoy open, frank, sometimes emotionally charged, but every time that's an honest and friendly dialogue about our joint future. Geographically, Ukraine is the center of Europe, and I will do my best for Ukraine to become this center economically and in terms of the mindset. We have a new president in the country, soon we'll have a new parliament in the country, and we'll have a new government in the country. And that means we'll have a new chance. Thank you.
by the President of the European Council, Donald Tusk.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Today we held our first EU-Ukraine summit with President Zelensky. It followed our first meeting in early June. And it was an excellent summit that allowed us to even further improve the partnership and friendship between Ukraine and the European Union. This is also reflected in the joint statement that we agreed today. Our partnership is built on the association agreement, which is the most comprehensive agreement that the EU has with any country. It provides the framework for our continuing political association and economic integration. Today we discussed how to make full use of its potential for the benefit of our citizens and businesses. President Juncker will speak more on our economic and energy cooperation, so let me instead once again confirm the EU's unwavering support for Ukraine's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence. We do not and will not recognize the illegal annexation of Crimea and Sevastopol by Russia. Only a few days ago, the EU unanimously extended the economic sanctions against Russia for another 6 months. The sanctions will remain in place until the Minsk agreements are fully implemented. The June European Council also called on Russia to release without any further delay the detained 24 Ukrainian servicemen and ensure unhindered and free passage to and from the Azov Sea. We condemn the Russian measures entitling Ukrainian citizens of the areas currently not under the control of the government to apply for Russian citizenship in a simplified manner. This runs counter to the Minsk agreements, and we stand ready to consider further options, including non-recognition of such Russian passports. Yesterday, I visited eastern Ukraine to witness firsthand the situation at the line of contact. It is clear that Minsk agreements need, more than ever before, to be implemented by all sides. Russia has a particular responsibility in this regard. Today we reaffirmed our full support for the diplomatic efforts in the Normandy format, the OSCE and Trilateral Contact Group to find a peaceful solution that respects Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. During my visit yesterday, I saw the disengagement of forces near Stanica Luhanska. This encouraging step now needs to be further strengthened. We expect Russia to make full use of its considerable influence over the separatists to make this possible. But I also witnessed the critical situation in which people affected by conflict live. The EU continues to support the efforts to alleviate the suffering that I saw hand in hand with OSCE, UN agencies, as well as international NGOs. The EU also stands ready to support reconstruction once the Minsk agreements are implemented. At our last two summits, I mentioned Oleg Sentsov. In December, he won the Sakharov Prize, which the European Parliament awards to those who have dedicated their lives to the defense of human rights and freedom of thought. Unfortunately, Oleg is still imprisoned. I renew our call to Russia to release him and all illegally detained Ukrainians in Russia and the Crimean Peninsula. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now a statement by the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be back here in Kiev, a city I have known for decades, but that I keep rediscovering with the same joy as the very first time. We were happy to host the new president in Brussels weeks ago. He took the initiative to organize his first trip outside the country to Brussels. We were welcoming this initiative. The new president, Mr. Zelensky, is starting his term at the time when relations between Ukraine and the European Union are the best I can remember. I say this as someone who has been there from the very start, as co-chair of our first summit in Kiev between Ukraine and the European Union on the 5th of September 1997, 11 o'clock in the morning. This is now the 21st summit we have together. It's your first,
Yeah.
it's our last.
Who knows?
But having seen it, I can honestly say that we have made more progress together in the last years since the Maidan revolution than we did in the 2 decades before. Thanks to the great sacrifices made by the great Ukrainian people, we have come a long way, and I'm proud to be able to say that we have supported you every step of the way. Our partnership is one of mutual solidarity and friendship. That's why we are backing that solidarity up with concrete support, notably for the Azov Sea region, so affected by ongoing conflict and by, in fact, unacceptable tensions due to the behavior of Russia. I'm happy to announce today a new package of measures in support to the Azov Sea region, which includes measures to rehabilitate key infrastructure in Mariupol and Kherson, new financing in local currency for small and medium-sized enterprises in the region. Property work is also launched on rail and road upgrades, paving the way for potential loans of over 450 million euros from financial institutions. We have also witnessed today the signature of new agreements for projects worth 119 million euros to further boost Ukraine's efforts to reform, continue decentralization, fight corruption and support civil society. Monsieur le Président, Mesdames, Messieurs, l'Union européenne que nous représentons ici
In fact, we have to be proud by Ukraine and our partnership. Respectively, the EU and other financial institutions have allocated more than 15 billion euro to support the reforms in Ukraine. They have been doing that since 2014. That brings our people closer. And visa-free regime assisted and contributed to that. That has always been on the agenda of the European Commission. Starting June 1, 2017, around 3 million of visits were conducted by Ukrainians to the EU member states. For this particular reason, we would like to enhance the engagement of Ukraine in Erasmus Plus program. Ukraine has been already an active partner there. More than 7,000 Ukrainian students have already participated in the program. That includes entrepreneurs as well. Our cooperation, thanks to the free trade agreement, Ukraine can facilitate its growth and see more progress in various areas. After the agreement agreements came into effect, we see the growth of 49%. The partnership is effective and working. In my previous career, when I was the president in my country and I was the president of the European Commission, every time we spoke about corruption, it was the focus of all our discussions. What I want to do this time, I want to see Ukraine that has a new president could undertake steps and will eliminate corruption in Ukraine, because people of Ukraine have high expectations. They are determined to make this happen. That's the nation that deserves to be without any corruption. Thank you. We appreciate the attention on the part of media to the 21st summit, though we are behind the time, but we have some time for Q&A. So the presidents, Mr. Tusk, Juncker, and Zelensky are ready to answer your questions. Let's start with the Ukrainian media. Journalist in white jacket, Alexandra Romaniuk, over to you. Mr. Zelensky, you spoke about that already. That's East Luganska Stanitsa and building the bridge. Russian propaganda will use different methods for the bridge not to be constructed. Do you have any time frame for the project to be completed and implemented? Are you going to get European partners engaged, not only financially, but as the ones that would secure some guarantees? And how important is the project for Ukraine? Thank you. Thank you for your question. I believe that I'll start answering this question, and I think President Tusk will add to that. We were there together yesterday. As to bridge reconstruction, that was one of the items on the Minsk agreement. It was pulling out of the troops. We pulled out our respective troops. That was done by both parties. And then we suggested constructing this bridge. We have money in the budget. That's a proposal of the European partners that we have to. We don't need anything else. But for the bridge to be constructed, it is very important for the other side to dismantle concrete installations and structures. As you remember, they said that technically they will need 8-10 days to do that. Honestly speaking, we are ready to do that quickly in the course of 2-3 days, but these are two parallel processes. That's what we agreed upon. Having seen what I saw there, my proposal is we are not going to wait for a long time. We don't have time to wait. You know what's happening to people there. People are crying, and President Tusk could confirm that. People did request this to happen. One elderly lady came up to me and said, Volodya, you know, I am a person with disability. I walk with a stick. That's the lady that is over 70, and she was pleading me to do that. So we are going to wait for another week, maximum 8 days, unless we see dismantling conducted by the other side. We'll start constructing the bridge. We are ready to do that. Civilians can do that. Servicemen, military can't do that. They are not entitled to do that. We have the ideas how to do that. We promise people that the bridge will be constructed within 1 month. That's going to be done. Is it okay? I am not talking too long. Another thing that we saw there, from the point where the bridge is to be constructed to government-controlled area, it takes, well, the distance is around 1 kilometer, and people have to walk that. And that adds complexity to the situation. Mr. Tusk and I were there, and my idea was like that. I talked to the new head of Lugansk Oblast administration and our team there, and the idea is to have electric cars and shuttle buses to take people there. We saw a lot of people walking there with the cases. These are young people, they live in Ukraine, they were visiting their parents on the other side and the other way around. So we want to have this service to ride them through. So we are going to move faster. We want to make sure that Minsk agreement is implemented, but we want to move faster than diplomats. Thank you.
Just one reflection. It's first of all, I really appreciate this very thinking of Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
My hopes are maybe a little bit more limited when it comes to the other side on the contact line. I saw that our side, sorry, but the President allowed me to use this. But on our side, Ukraine has fulfilled all the obligation when it comes to this idea of disengagement. On the other side, they didn't. This is why my hopes are limited. Of course, this is a question of trust. I think it's for all of us. It is something very difficult to trust them when it comes to this kind of proposals and processes like disengagement. But maybe this is the only way to test their will. Pożywiomu video.
Thank you for this. So let's suggest the word to foreign media and maybe Christopher Miller, Radio Liberty. Yes, Chris, yes.
Thanks.
We are ready to French language.
Really? Okay. I'll ask in English. How about that?
Okay.
You've taken a more hearts and minds approach to the conflict than your predecessor. You were in Stanislav Luganska, and you have talked a lot about fixing the bridge, but are you prepared to take other steps, like lifting the economic blockade and perhaps making it a little bit easier for Ukrainians on the other side of the contact line to receive their pensions on the government-controlled side of the contact line? Secondly, the U.S. Embassy said yesterday that Ukraine has officially requested to buy weapons from the U.S. Can you say which weapons in particular Ukraine would like to buy? And for the other presidents on either side of you, you said today that, again, you reiterated your demands for Russia to release Ukrainian captives and the 24 sailors held captive by Russia. But Russia has not listened to you up to this point. At what point is the EU prepared to take more or stronger measures to force Russia to heed these demands?
Thank you. If I may answer first, unless the presidents don't mind. I'd like to say which steps we have proposed to continue the Minsk agreements and to resolve the matter of ceasefire and disengagement. We would like to stop this war in the shortest time. We offered the opportunity on getting the pensions. People were complaining a lot yesterday that a person can only get their pension within 1 month. Within 60 days. They can only get a pension for 60 days. And we have offered the following step. Let us expand this opportunity for the people, to be humans. We gave them a term of 1 year for which they can receive their pensions. But I very much hope that we won't have this war within a year's time. People were also complaining that a lot of food products cannot be transported to the other side. They cannot carry them, they cannot bring them to the other side. We have a simple proposal here. They have to have a list of products or items that they cannot carry across the line. This is very easy to do that, and we should not have a prohibitive list instead. This will make life much easier for the people on the other side, because they're not playing political games. They live in Ukraine, and there's nothing they can do, because their parents, for example, are in a difficult situation. When they do not want to move to Ukraine, to the Ukrainian territories, to the territories controlled by us. The matter of economic blockade, I don't want to be misunderstood here. You know that all of that is possible. We're discussing this in Minsk. I remember how media misinterpreted ex-President Kuchma. We said that everything can be done, but then please bring us back, well, nationalized or whatever other word you may use, to illegally nationalized our enterprises that are located on temporarily occupied territories. And in Minsk, we are also discussing the matter of exchange of prisoners of war. The lists of both parties do not match. They're showing us the lists that there's less, which include less people than there are actually there, and without the people whom we know are there. We want to stop the war, and we hope to find a solution, and we hope to achieve progress in the exchange of prisoners of war as well in the soonest possible time. On the agreements with the US, right? This was your second question. If you don't mind, I cannot disclose this matter for now. Time will come. Thank you.
The sanctions against Russia, it was, if I remember well, 3 weeks ago, and it's very unlikely that we will decide on a new sanctions in a short-term perspective.
Mr. Ukrainian, are you gonna? Okay. Okay, one more question. Interfax. Давайте, може, Роман Ляшенко.
Roman Lashenko, Interfax, Ukraine, please. Hello. If I may ask this question. President of European Commission, Mr. Shevchevich, announced that there will be trilateral gas discussions or gas transit discussions. What kind of results do you expect from these negotiations? Another question to President Zelensky. With the upcoming parliamentary elections, there are lots of candidates with very similar names, with the last name similar to yours. How do you see this technology that can distort the choice of the citizens? Well, you said that this question is not very serious, but I know that this is, I mean, the second part of your question is pretty complex. That there's lots of copies of parties, of the servicemen of the people. I cannot promote my party as a president. I cannot promote the campaign of the servicemen of the people political party. I understand that there are lots of copies of this party, particularly in the majority system. I know that the guys from the party of the servicemen of the people addressed the court and the electoral commission on this matter, but there's no answer yet. I will not influence the Central Electoral Commission or the courts on this matter, but I would very much like the people, well, when they make their choice, so that the people read the lists carefully. What is the party, to make sure that they're looking at the political party servicemen of the people, but I cannot promote the party in any way. As to Mr. Shevkovich, I did have a discussion with him about the new contracts. You know that we have a certain timeline, we should continue with the contract, and I know that this discussion should continue in December, but this is the matter of energy security of Ukraine. I made a statement about my position and about my team's position that we do want to sit down at the negotiation table in September already, and we want to resolve the matter. And I think we can make it. Thank you.
I think that a functioning relationship between Ukraine, the European Union and Russia is in the interest of all sides. As you rightly said, Vice President Šefčovič stands ready to help to find a solution before the end of this year. I have to add what we always said, that the unbundling of Naftogaz is essential. It is in the interest of all Ukrainian citizens for the sector to be more transparent and more competitive. We hope this will happen before the end of this year.
Дякую за запитання.
Thank you for your questions. I think that's it. We're really out of time. Thank you very much.
That was important to ask questions. Дякую.
Bye-bye.